The missus is sick or might be sick, so this one probably won't be super long. But I am going to be making chicken noodle soup soon. So let's talk a little bit about what's been happening. So Takaichi got this. Ooh, she got a majority. She got a super majority, two-thirds super majority. Takaichi is kind of a goofy prime minister. Um, so far, I'm a little interested and a little worried as to exactly what she wants to do. Ironically, the things that I am worried about with regards to Takaichi is not so much of her foreigner stuff and more so her economics stuff. She has not really, she's demonstrated a kind of sh- shaky willfulness to kind of screw around with the yen, with all this kind of stuff. So let's see if she does anything beneficial, but realistically, she's demonstrated a market shift to the right to appease to voters, to take people from Sanseito, which, in some ways you might say is a very clever political move or some such. I'm not entirely sure. I'm not a paid political economist, so I'm just some guy. But I would say that I'm a little trepidatious, I'm a little uneasy about what's going on right now with regards to the win with Takaichi, but let's see how it goes. There's actually a lot of like other problems that are kind of occurring right now that really should be mentioned. One of I think the biggest nuclear reactor is being started once again in Japan, but they ended up having to shut it down because of technical issues. So if people are not familiar, Japan suspended all of their reactors after the 2011 East uh, Northeast earthquake, the Tohoku disaster, the Tohoku earthquake. And so they put those in suspension, and then they started to import a lot of their energy because they didn't have like an alternative major energy source. So they were investing very heavily into sustainable energy sources, but also importing. So they were importing coal, natural gases. They were focusing very heavily on building solar farms and whatnot, which currently has a little bit of a political issue in Hokkaido because they're building some of these solar farms in like actual natural sanctuary reserves. So a few people are not too happy about that. Um, yeah, so they're just trying. We've got like a whole bunch of wind farms up north of Sapporo, and so that's one of the big things as well. So there's a lot of stuff there. So there's the energy thing, and then there's the whole situation with Takeichi. Um, and so there's been a loss of power with regards to Sanseito, but Sanseito itself is I see it more as symptomatic of something that's been developing, which is an increasing simplification or increasing desire for the simplification of what's going on with Japan right now, because the country overall in general is not doing very well in regards to economics. The prices of everyday expenses are going up. Everything is going up in terms of prices, but the wages are continuing to depress. There is just not an increase in wages that is commensurate to things. And so a lot of people are who generally are just not really well read in terms of what's going on politically or economically are just pointing fingers. So there's been a lot of fingers been pointed and so on and so forth. So there's all that kind of stuff. Um, where I am, a lot of the sentiments are like anti-Chinese sentiment because primarily Chinese tourists are the really big ones who are coming here. Unless you're over in like Kuchan or like Niseko, which you know, then the ire gets thrown at the Australians because Australian skiers are like infamous for being bad tourists. Um, but yeah, Progress on the video is going okay. It's a little slow. It's a little slow right now. The main reason why is because I do want to adjust the recording a little bit, because what I want to do is I want to try and do a two-camera setup. So I'm going to try and set up a two-camera setup, and then I'm going to record from the front, but I'm also going to have like a sort of like side recording on the other one. I want to try and use both cameras to sort of like make it a little bit more dynamic. The main reason why is I want to sort of give it a shot and see how that kind of thing works. I've seen it done in with other YouTubers, and I think it really helps with regards to like making things feel a little bit more dynamic. The only downside, of course, is they usually have somebody help them out with it when they're doing those kinds of shots. So it's just going to be me. So I just have to like set up tripod, light, all that kind of stuff on my own. So it takes a little bit, and then I got to make sure the audio works, because I can never figure out how to like get good audio. I watch YouTube videos all the time, and like I know the information and whatnot, but maybe I just have like really bad hearing or something. Maybe my ears are just really bad, but I can never get audio that I'm happy with. So it drives me nuts. Every time it drives me nuts. Like visually, I can look at something and be like, okay, yeah, I got it. Boom, done, no problem. But I don't know, can't figure it out. So yeah, that's pretty much it. Just came back from a cold. Thankfully, it's probably not like a big fever, not a big flu, but came back from a cold. Little unfortunate, that kind of thing. But yes, ooh, that's a little bit difficult. So let's get over that. Yeah. So yeah, that's pretty much it. That's all of the stuff that I wanted to mention in terms of updates. Once again, thank you everybody for helping the channel, all that kind of stuff. Again, the progress. Once again, I really want to talk about what's going on with the progress with that video about content creation in Hokkaido, but I'm trying really hard not to just like ask random people, and the reason why is because person on the street kind of interviews just doesn't. I want to get somebody who like knows the topic to like sit down and do it. But the problem here is that when I try and get somebody who knows the topic to like do a sit down and stuff, they see like, it's tough, because they ask for like the questions and all kind of stuff beforehand, and then I send it to them, and then I get like ghosted. They're just like, "Oh, who are you with? Where are you from?" And I was like, "I'm a YouTuber with 40K subs. What do you think?" And then they kind of just ghost me, and so it's a little tricky. It's a little difficult, and so I'm gonna have to work on that the Stevie Swan thing. Hopefully that's gonna build more of a rapport. I hope. I'm gonna try and work on the Ryo Koarai video, is the one about content creation in Hokkaido, and I do want to really try and get one. I do want to really try and get somebody who knows enough about Ainu on an authoritative level to sit down and speak with me about it. English or Japanese is totally fine. I'll handle the interview in either language, no problem. Whatever they want to do. And I also want to try and get somebody to talk about it in regards to what's going on in Tomakomai. Tomakomai, one of the Uma Musume girls from Tomakomai, but there's also like the history of a lot of few things in Tomakomai with regards to media properties. Erase is one example. Erase is based off the location of an Erase is based off the Tomakomai. I think it literally happens in Tomakomai, as far as I recall. But I just need two people. For that, and it's really difficult. And I think I might be able to do like a sit down local kind of thing, but it kind of starts to like veer away from that sort of the vision that I have. But at this stage, it's been like months, and I'm still trying to get people, and it's I'm essentially just like cold calling people at this stage. It's really tricky. Um, you know, maybe I just don't have like the publicist like energy or something. I don't know. I can't figure it out. I can't figure it out. Um, I have, and I do know it is partly because of my YouTube channel. Because I do have people who are like quote unquote like on the inside, like quote unquote helping me out, kind of like on the inside, and they have mentioned to me that like the big sticking point is that just the fact that like I'm a YouTuber with 40K subs, and there's like no guarantee that I'm actually going to be able to depict them in like a positive light, which is like totally understandable. That's completely fair, because I'm not like asking random people on the streets, be like, hi, I have a question for you, that kind of thing. I'm not doing that. I am I'm literally asking like somebody at like City Hall or somebody in the tourism, like in an official capacity, like somebody on tourism to like sit down and speak about it. And then there's like, oh, who are you from? Are you from like NHK? It's like, no, I'm just a YouTuber. And there's like, ooh, I don't know about that. Can't really trust about that, right? So I get it. I get it. I totally get it. 100% get it. But it does not make my life any easier. It does not make my life any easier. And I want to be able to put out content that I myself would think would be like interesting and whatnot. There's like a million Japanese YouTube channels out there that are just like daily life in Japan kind of thing, which is like there's nothing wrong with that, but that's just not the kind of content that I'm like trying to make. But at this case, like at this stage, it really seems like that's the only kind of content that is possible to create for like very specific reasons. And so it's like really, really, it's really, really tricky here. So that's where I'm at in terms of progress. So I get there's more like long term vision kind of stuff. But right now, the CV Swan video is what I'm working on right now. Again, might have to rejig a little bit with regards to the footage on my end. So that is where we are in terms of progress. Okay, let's talk about some of the questions and comments from the previous video. So last time, people, so comment here. Juju says, just curious, have you naturalized in Japan? The answer is no, and I will probably never naturalize in Japan. There is no benefit becoming a Japanese citizen. As a foreigner, there's no benefit becoming a Japanese citizen versus going for permanent residency. Primarily because of a few factors. The first factor is they will request you to give up your residency. Sorry, they'll request you to give up the citizenship of your other country. And so, no, why would I do that? I'm not going to give up my Canadian citizenship. That's crazy. The second one is also there's not a lot of technical differences between a permanent residency and Japanese citizenship. And if you look at the numbers with regards to foreigners who actually have Japanese citizenship, they're not very high, especially compared to the number of foreigners with permanent residencies. The benefits are not the same. The benefits are pretty much the same. The downsides are pretty much the same. You might have more. You might have more like legal reprieve, I've heard, but the problem here is that a lot of the phrasing with regards to the procuracy is just so vague that at the end of the day, it's not a big difference. Sure, you can vote in the elections, but the electoral system it's very different. So there's not a big the electoral system is not like a great benefit for it. Um, you can own property as a permanent resident. I mean, owning property is one of the reasons why it's actually one of the strongest elements to getting permanent residency. So there's no reason, realistically, to be a Japanese citizen, as far as I can tell. Um, your name is going to get butchered so that it can fit into the archaic naming registration system that it has. So it's it just doesn't really make a lot of sense. And if you have children, or if you plan to have children, it really locks out your kids, because the government will entertain dual citizenship for kids until they're 19. So if you naturalize and you become a citizen before your kids are 19 years old, then they just lose out on potential dual citizenship until they're 19, well, upon which then they have to decide. So those are the clunky mechanics that never I would never naturalize as a Japanese citizen. Um, and I think it's also kind of good in a weird way, because my partner is Japanese. I'm Canadian. These are the differences in our citizenships. If something happens, like for example, I don't know, the Japan goes to war. The Takaichi's got the she's got the supermajority. Somehow the LDP, they're bringing back they're 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 bringing back the Guntai. They're bringing things back. Um, if Japan goes to war and something like that happens, and then my partner wants to leave, it's better for me to have Canadian citizenship and retain Canadian citizenship than for both of us to be like Japanese citizens. So, at least she's got another place that she can, like, quote unquote call home of sorts, right? So, yeah, I don't no, I'm not naturalizing. I'm not naturalizing. Permanent residency is fine. Permanent residency is fine, but I'm not naturalizing. I don't see the benefit of it. Um, Anonliso asks, good luck on the academic gaijin track. Thank you. Um, so would be cool to have institutional Obon like holiday to cure homesickness. Yeah, that's yeah. I like that with Obon. However, the thing about Obon is that it's not like a nationally mandated holiday, so it is still a little difficult because it's not something that you see it a lot with, like, retail workers, in the service industry, all that kind of stuff. They get slammed during Obon. Um, Confectionery shops, those kinds of places, they're also very busy during Obon. So it's not like the whole country shuts down during Obon and everybody gets to go home. No, there's a very specific kind of um, there's this very specific, like, kind of like bedrock industry that just can't shut down for Obon, and it really sucks for some of those people too. Um, and it's arguably it gets worse for some of those people because I mentioned confectionery shops. One of the big cultures is the souvenir culture in Japan, omiyage, and so the souvenir culture in Japan is really really big. And it's generally a nice thing because every time your friends or your coworkers or something, they're always getting you like little gifts, and the expectation is like whenever you're going off and doing something and all that kind of stuff, you're getting little gifts and all that kind of stuff. That's fine. But let's say you live in Tokyo and your hometown is somewhere in Nagano, and then you go back to Nagano, you're visiting your family. There is an expectation that you would be getting something from Tokyo to, oh, here, I have some, like, some omiyage. Here you go. Um, that's not a big deal from the individual's perspective, but when you're thinking about it from the perspective of like somebody who's like working in, say, a bakery or a confectionery shop or something that is like very souvenirable, that means that those holiday moments where it's supposed to be like a wind down, meet your family kind of thing, all of a sudden are like big, heavy slam moments for you. So the relationship is very inverse for a lot of people. And that sort of industry is generally fielded by people who are paid less. Their incomes are much less, so they're kind of required to work those kinds of places. They can't really risk taking those weeks off. So it comes with its consequences. Uh, Jerome says, "Wait, no boar hunting?" Yeah, so in Hokkaido, the big ones are not boars; they're bears, and they're also deer. The big industry when it comes to hunters in Hokkaido are deers, but the big problems are bears. So, why is that the case? The primary reason is because hunters are paid per kill. And the thing is that it's much easier to hunt deer than it is to hunt bears, but the amount of bounty you get for bears and deer are actually very, very similar. The additional thing is there's a lot of licensing that's required to become a hunter and to also maintain being a hunter. It's also not a regular salary job. You are paid for the kill and you are being sent in. The times that you're being sent in to take a look at things and see what's going on, you're not getting paid. You're only getting paid once you actually get it. The additional thing here is that there are very strict requirements about when you can or cannot fire, when you can or cannot have loaded armaments, all that kind of stuff. Especially when it comes to, like, say, if you're in a town or if you're in a city, you can or cannot fire in specific circumstances. But the problem here is that 99% of the time where they're going to need a hunter is going to be when these animals actually enter and encroach in the cities. So it's kind of a catch 22 where you're severely limited in the space in which you can actually hunt. Because most of the time when you go out and then you're like tracking a bear or something like that, it's not really something that you do on a regular basis. Most of the times you're going to need to be hunting. You are going to need to be hunting because a town has called you in. It's not like you're going out and doing hunting on a regular basis. And so there are a lot of rules about that make it really, really difficult. That is also on top of the expenses that are going to be required with regards to things like hunting dogs. A lot of hunters have hunting dogs. They're part of kennel clubs. Kennel clubs maintain and distribute and manage pups with regards to the Akita or Shiba pups that are helping for hunting, those kinds of things. Those are very, very important. Um, and there's an increased cost about that because maintaining and managing and having dogs in Japan is also kind of an expensive thing, which, to bring it back to another question from Inukami, what's it like to have dogs in Japan? They're expensive. Pets in general are expensive to have in Japan. So landlords have a lot of say with regards to what kind of animals tenants can and cannot have in Japan, especially when it comes to dogs and cats. Especially in the bigger cities, if you're in an apartment, if you're in an apartment, they have a lot of rules with regards to animals. They can also charge you more rent per animal, and that's a really, really important distinction here. So in Japan, animals in apartments are classified both based upon what kind of animal it is, as well as the size of the animal. So most places, if they accept animals, like say a dog, will only accept dogs of certain sizes and certain breeds. So they tend to favor toy breeds, what are called toy breeds. And those are like the little dogs, little like cute little like yappy dogs, that kind of thing. So like very like dogs in the purses and that kind of stuff. They prefer that because those dogs are not as destructive potentially, if they freak out or cause issues or something, they're not as like destructive to the actual apartment as potentially a larger dog, or that's how it is seen in Japan. I'm not a dog owner, so please don't be like, that's actually not the case, Joe. You're actually wrong. I'm just saying, like, that's the perspective that a lot of landlords will have. And so tenants don't have real pet rights in Japan. So if they want pets or if they want to maintain pets, they have to be able to pay for any damages. A lot of times, if there's damages or anything, that's not covered under wear and tear if it's done by what the landlord thinks is a pet. So it's very, very specific. Like, for example, one of my friends, she's got a lot of cats, and she has to pay for each cat as part of her rent. So, like, I think like half of her rent is literally just because she has to pay extra per cat on top of her rent. So, this is how, like, a lot of people just don't really have pets, or if they have pets, they're like very small pets. And it's kind of funny because you can tell the income level of some people based upon just the size of their pets in public. Like, if you see a lady walking around with like a German Shepherd, like a real big dog, which is super rare, like very, very rare. She either lives like in a really, really well-to-do apartment, or she like lives in like a house with like a yard and stuff like that, and that is, depending upon when she got it, can be quite expensive too. So homeowners tend to be the majority of pet owners, and most pet owners in apartments are paying a lot of extra for dogs, so stuff like that. But it is also very nice seeing dogs now and then, because like you get the little cute little Shimas you see now and then. They're very nice. I love them. I love them. But yeah, there's a reason why like pet cafes are a thing here, because sometimes you just want to hang out with animals that hopefully won't bite you. So uh, Biston says, could you talk a bit about how you learned Japanese in the next video? Yeah. So I actually took a really, really long time to learn Japanese, because like I kept doing like on and off. Which in hindsight, like if I could do it again, I would have absolutely done it more frequently when I started. Um, it took me forever because I sort of had like a very similar mentality that a lot of people like learning Japanese for the first time had, which is that like it just felt like insurmountable. It just felt like there was just so much to it. But I realized that I realized to think about it. So I'm really into like fitness, which is very ironic considering how much I drink. But I'm really into fitness, and one of the big tenets with regards to fitness is what's more important is doing something regularly than doing something either like optimally or so on and so forth. And so I feel like language learning is very similar to that. Is doing something regularly, even if that thing is incremental. The so uh when I started thinking about learning Japanese along those lines, like doing something on a regular basis, avoiding things like burnout, avoiding confidence dips, all that kind of stuff, that is really, really helpful. Building up a habit is very, very good. Um, I learned. I went through the first two. For me, I went through the first two Genki books to get a basic idea of the grammar. And then after that, I just started reading. Like I just started reading. I've did the reading with manga kind of thing, but it wasn't like a thing for me. I actually ended up reading more like light novels. Like I started off with like a really basic one, which is, let me see if I can find it around here. I put it aside. I put it aside here. No. Yeah, so here we go. So So one of the first ones I read uh, is to full completion is this one. So this is Kiki's Delivery Service. Um, so so it was trying to read things that are manageable, trying to read things that are manageable for you, because eventually, just like in terms of fitness, when you do things that are manageable, then you start to move on to a higher level, and then you start to do that and all that kind of stuff, and then you just sort of steadily grow from there. Um, I'm not the I'm not really a person who believes that there's like a right or a wrong way to learn language. I mainly believe that there are like slightly more productive or less productive ways to learn language. And I think it also boils down to like the kind of goals that you want to do. Like, do you want to like come here and like work here? Do you want to, I don't know, like do translations? Do you want to watch anime without subtitles, or watch Japanese TV without subtitles? Like, those are very, those are like different skill sets that you can like cultivate, and they will all help you build to like different kinds or forms of increasing language fluency. But it can also be like very off-putting to think like, oh, I want to watch anime that has like without using subtitles, but then you're just sitting here just like grinding like sentence structures or something. Like these are, it can be helpful and it is helpful, but it might not directly translate, and then it leads to sort of like a confidence dip. And so that kind of thing I've realized is really important, just like being consistent and confident, and also being invested in the language that like you want to learn, and all that kind of stuff. And it is of my belief that like, and I don't know how controversial this is going to be, but it's my belief that somebody who is like really into like Japanese media does not have to learn the language, um unless they're putting themselves in situations where they must use that language or must have more of that language. Like if somebody who's like, because like there's a, I don't know, I feel like there's a lot of elitism when it comes in like language learning, that I feel like can really be done away with, um in the sense of like, I feel like if language learning bros are a lot more like gym bros, where it's just the only thing that matters is just doing it harder than last time, learning language harder than last time, then everybody will have a better sense of progression, and that will just translate to better overall gains, language speaking wise. I don't know, but yeah, for me, my pathway was pretty much just going through. I used like apps, so I used Warikani to help me with the kanji, because kanji was just like very challenging to get the first base. But when I got to about like level 35, so I got to level 35, and then I just started reading books that they recommended were like around like N3 level. Grammar points that I wasn't familiar with, I just looked up. I just looked up grammar points. I used a dictionary. I used a Japanese grammar dictionary, and then you kind of just get used to it, because like it's one of those things where it's just like I know that a lot of people have difficulty with grammar, and that's like a really very real thing, especially if you're so used to like a romantic language structure. But you kind of get used to it after like a couple times. Like when you come across a grammar point and then you read it and you're just like, okay, and then you kind of come across it like maybe like 4 or 5 more times, it kind of just like seeps into your brain, and you're just like, oh, that's like how it is, like kind of stuff. Like I remember, I remember for the longest time I had difficulty like learning functionally learning like according to, right. That was like one grammar that I had really long, but that's because like I never used it. Like I had such a long time like forgetting, uh like according to, yeah. you know uh And I was like, man, this grammar point sucks. And when I was in conversations with people, I was just like I was like, oh, what was that word? Um, but then I made a concerted effort to just use it, just force it into the language. I was like, all right, I'm just gonna say this. I'm gonna say this sentence with this grammar point a couple times, some variations of it, a couple times in like random conversation. And then, after like 4 or 5 times, it kind of just started sticking. So I feel like you learn it, but you also got to use it. Um, I also understand, and this is something that people really have to acknowledge, I feel like, which is I also understand that I have a very specific privilege in that, like, a lot of my friends here, in fact, most of my friends here are Japanese. And so my fiance, she's Japanese. Um, my coworkers are Japanese. Uh, my friends are Japanese. Um, I'm just in a Japanese environment all the time, and that has significantly helped my ability to parse out information on the fly, uh, deal with a lot of things like like because like you just learn the kanji, nowadays. Like you just you learn what kanji is what and all that kind of stuff. And you think about it, you're just like, oh, this is like I don't know, this is like N1 kanji, but like you see it all the time everywhere. It's being used all the time. Or like particular kinds of like discussions, grammar points, all that kind of stuff. So I understand that there's a very specific privilege that I have that makes it a lot easier for me because it's always being used, it's always being reinforced. And so I think also in that case, it's very important to just immerse yourself as much as you can in a target language environment if you possibly can. So, but yeah, I think that's it. I don't know. I don't know. Really sorry if that's not really the question that is being asked here. Uh, but yeah, I think also the big thing is just constantly learning, constantly consuming, all that kind of stuff. Always try to challenge yourself. Learn Japanese harder every time. You know, just harder every day. Just do it like you're going to the gym or something. I have no idea. But thank you, everybody. That's what we have for today. Thank you. I hope you have a nice weekend. It is very bright outside, so I'm super washed out. Peace.